So in my freshman year of college, I was matched with this girl to be my roommate who was really, really, really into Steven Universe. So I wanted her to want to be my friend, so I watched Steven Universe too. And I got really into it, and we were both like obsessed with Steven Universe until the end of its run. We cosplayed for Halloween every year, and it was just part of our friendship that we were watching shows that were meant for people younger than us. I keep saying we're still friends, it's just that she has to drive up a couple hours to see me, and we still watch cartoons. But my new roommate, the person who lives in her room, grew up with Steven Universe too, but they were a child when Steven Universe came on, and I really missed watching cartoons with my old roommates, so I asked them this week if they would like to watch The Owl House with me, which is a show that I've had highly recommended, but I never really got around to watching for no particular reason. I saw it on Disney Plus. I went, you know what, let's watch this. I asked them if they'd like to watch it. We watched the first 3 episodes and they hated it. Okay, maybe they didn't hate it, but they were miserable and clearly watching it only out of politeness. So I eventually told them, all right, you can go. And I watched the rest of it by myself. And I really did enjoy it, but only after I got past the first couple of episodes, because the first couple of episodes are very, very good kids show material, which is fine. I understand that I am an adult watching a children's series, and when I give you my opinions of what's going on in this show, it comes from the perspective of an adult watching a children's series, and I don't even have kids that I can be watching this with, that I can evaluate on their behalf. That being said, I was thinking a lot during this about what kinds of stories I wanted the Owl House to be telling, because the first half of season 1 is a lot of plots that are well tread in children's media. The morals of each story are very obvious. Things like borrowing things that don't belong to you, or doing the opposite of what the adult who's taking care of you tells you to do, and showing how that can be dangerous. And to me, I've seen this plot 1,000 times because I'm in my 20s. I've seen a lot of TV and movies. I've seen a lot of things that are meant for children. However, for the target audience of the Owl House, this may actually be the first time they're seeing that kind of story. And even if it's the 3rd time they're seeing that kind of story, it may not be exhausting yet. So I'm not really sure what should have been done. That being said, the episodes that don't fall into those traps are incredible. The first episode that I was really, really impressed with was episode 4. The episode where Luce and King are locked in the house while a monster is attacking. There's a bit of a moral to that one, which is don't take other people's things, because it could turn out to be your parent figure's important medication. But it was a delightful episode to watch. The story came first and the moral came second. I was very, very impressed. So overall, I have to say, I think that The Owl House is not only a very good series, but also a series with a lot of potential. Towards the end of season 1, when the characters were established, the pieces of the plot were established, the world was far more established, these things could be focused on more in the episode, so there was more to the plot in each episode, and the moral of that episode could take more of a backseat. Not that the morals themselves were bad, but that focusing on them so much was really what turned my roommate off from watching it in the first place. So what is The Owl House? The Owl House is a series developed by Dana Terrace and produced by Disney. It's currently available on Disney Plus primarily, and it focuses on the story of Luce Noceda. Luce, I have to say that the first 2.5 minutes of this series are some of the most impressive 2.5 minutes at the beginning of a series I have ever seen. It's probably the best introduction to a series I think I've ever seen. It opens with this scene of this witch killing this monster, and you back out and see that it's Luce delivering a book report about a book that she read, and we find out that Luce is in trouble for having her head up in the clouds too much. She's eventually sent off to, I forget how it's phrased, it's something like learning how to be a productive member of society camp. It's not productive member of society, but it's like learn how to appreciate public radio, learn how to do a mortgage, stuff like that. Basically, Luce is deemed too odd a child and sent off to a camp that will make her normal. And the thing is, this entire show is a big ol' allegory for being gay. The camp that Luce is sent to at the beginning is an extremely transparent metaphor for conversion therapy. Luce's weirdness is ultimately made of things that are largely harmless but disturb the people around her just because they are odd. She has, severed doll heads and stuff like that. She's just a weird kid, but not weird in a way that actually harms anyone. And this weirdness is fine and doesn't harm anyone is the moral center of the series. There are other morals, the ones that I was referencing earlier, that come up in specific episodes, but the overarching theme of the series has to do with how authority controls people who dissent, and how authority can take advantage of it. And the thing that's really interesting about that is the way that Dana Terrace herself fits into exactly the kind of story that she's trying to tell here. The first episode deals with Luce having to go to the Conformatorium, a place that imprisons people who are weird. One girl is in jail for writing fan fiction, and another one is in jail for not believing the earth is round. Ultimately, things that, while frowned upon by the rest of society, aren't actually harmful. Luce is able to free these people, and they help her achieve the goal of the episode, which is retrieving a small item that belongs to someone that lives with the person that Luce now lives with. And the moral of that episode is explicitly stated. It's something like us weirdos have to stick together, and as long as you're not hurting anybody, it's okay to do whatever you want. Things that are absolutely true and the morals that we want to be promoting in our society. Okay, people like me are trying to promote in our society. However, this is a Disney show. More on that later. After Luce is sent to conversion camp, she stumbles through this portal to a magical world where she stumbles across this woman named Ida the Owl Lady, an older, powerful witch who lives in a magical land called the Boiling Isles. Luce quickly convinces Ida to take her on as an apprentice. She lives with Ida in what's called the Owl House and works for her in exchange for lessons in how to do magic. Eventually, Luce ends up going to a Hogwarts style. It's not even Hogwarts style. I should not say Hogwarts style. It's very not similar to Hogwarts. Eventually, Luce ends up going to what is almost a regular high school, except mostly for magic, that supplements her lessons that she's getting from Ida. Over the course of the series, it becomes less about her trying to learn magic from Ida and more about the strong mentor-student, but more like maternal relationship that Ida and Luce have. Ida is a criminal, and we don't really find out why until a couple of episodes in, when the overarching moral of the entire story is revealed. In this world, many, many, many people are witches, and each witch is supposed to join a coven, one of 9 different covens that focus on a different type of magic. Each person is supposed to select only one type of magic that they will do for the rest of their lives. Doing any magic other than the one that they selected is a crime, and If you are very, very, very good, you can join what's called the Emperor's Coven, which is the coven that works for the government, basically, or works for the Emperor, actually. And if you're in the Emperor's Coven, which is only allowed by the most talented individuals in the Boiling Isles, you are allowed to do any kind of magic because you are doing it in service to the Emperor. In this story, the Emperor is an extremely thinly veiled allegory for organized religion. It's important that everybody sorts themselves into these extremely rigid structures, and anybody who doesn't is an outcast and is to be imprisoned. If you go long enough without being imprisoned, you are turned to stone. Despite the fact that the smaller morals in the series are somewhat irksome, the larger morals that the series takes on are things that are very, very interesting to me. For example, at the beginning of season 1, Luce is obsessed with the idea that she is going to be some kind of grand chosen one hero type who is very, very special. However, it becomes clear very quickly that not only are con artists willing and able to take advantage of this desire of hers, but also as a human she has no inborn talent for magic, and any amount of magic she's going to learn will come at a much higher time cost and effort cost than it would for anyone else in the Boiling Isles. For one, I really adore No Such Thing as Chosen One stories. Luce's lack of ability to do magic makes her an underdog, and eventually by the end of the season she is quite competent at the subsets of magic that she's begun to learn. So the series tries to tell you that there is no destiny laid out for you. If there is a future you want, you have to work for it. You have to choose what you want and begin working hard if you ever want to see the results that are what you desire, which is the kind of story that I tend to really appreciate. Luce is a very inspiring character once you get past the very irritating kid protagonist habits that she has in the first half of season 1. But as the series goes on, she becomes a much better person, a much better friend, and a much better witch. On top of that, I really enjoy the deep contempt that Dana Terrace obviously has for the system. The woman who has taken Luce under her wing, Ida the Owl Lady, is a woman who intensely despises being told what to do and is fiercely independent and completely unwilling to compromise for any reason other than to protect Luce, because she sees the Emperor as evil and controlling, and the whole Coven system as evil and controlling. It's made excruciatingly clear over the course of the first season that the Coven system limits the populace. There are students who are trying to combine multiple disciplines and do so successfully in order to make things that are more powerful. However, the Emperor doesn't want people knowing how to be more powerful. He wants them to stay in their little boxes so that he can have power over them. At the end of season 1, by the way, there will be season 1 spoilers here, Ida is captured by the Emperor, and you think for the entire season that the Emperor is trying to capture her so that he can use her power for his own benefit, because Ida is such a strong witch. However, ultimately, Ida's power comes from her reputation. Everybody knows that she's an outlaw. Everybody loves her, but they also know her. What the Emperor's actual plan is to have her executed publicly, to be used as a tool for his own control over the populace. We will get back to that later. I want to talk about a couple of the characters. For one, I want to be Ida Clawthorne when I grow up. Wow, I'm constantly in awe of this woman. Amazing. Luce, as a protagonist, starts out fairly weak and somewhat devoid of character traits. She it's not that she's devoid of character traits. It's that her character becomes stronger as the series goes on, as the writers have more to draw on from prior episodes. At the end of season 1, Luz is a character that I cared very much about. At the beginning, I found her to be a little bit flat. King. So there's a bit of a problem, in my opinion, with a couple of things about this series. One is the pacing. Each episode feels like it could be longer. A lot is trying to be accomplished, and some of the character development feels like it's going at a blisteringly fast pace. For example, Amity goes from being a borderline school bully to being a misunderstood and only a little bit irritating friend of the rest of the cast within the space of only a few episodes. This is kind of jarring to watch. I feel like that arc could have been stretched out a little bit longer to make that feel more real. The other problem that the series has, and maybe this isn't even a problem, okay, no, it's a problem, is a very odd priority balance between some members of the cast. For example, King. King is the adorable dog-shaped roommate of Ida and Luz. He considers himself the king of demons, and he eventually wants to reclaim his throne. He's voiced by Alex Hirsch, one of the best voice actors on the planet. He's also on the front of every poster. He's very strongly featured in the opening and ending. Actually, just the ending of season 2. And he receives what is, in my opinion, way too much screen time. It's not that I dislike King. It's that there are other characters like Gus who have the potential to be really interesting, and yet who only have 1 or 2 episodes dedicated to them. Gus is a classmate of Luz's, and one of the people she considers to be her best friends. One of her best friends. And he has had an A plot in one episode and a B plot in another episode, if I remember correctly. King, on the other hand, is the A or B plot for almost every single episode. I think that it feels unbalanced. There are members of the cast who get far more attention than other members of the cast who I think deserve more attention. And it's not out of some kind of preference for Gus. It's because I think that the series wants me to think of Gus as a main character, and I can't. I can't think of him as a main character because I don't know anything about him. He's an illusionist, and that's really cool. I play an illusionist in D&D. He skipped a couple grades. That's really interesting. All right, now I'm out of information about him. He likes humans. He likes humans. Yeah. Willow doesn't suffer from this nearly as much. I feel like Willow's focus is a lot more proportional to the depth of her character. But Amity, I don't even know what to say about Amity as far as this goes. She's a character with a lot of potential. She gets a huge amount of screen time, and I still feel like she could get more. The point that I'm trying to get at is that the series itself could be way longer. And I know a lot of people don't like filler, but my opinion on filler is that it's almost necessary in a series like this. The important thing about this series, The Owl House, is that you care about the people inside it. This isn't a mystery. It's not trying to keep you hanging on with the promise of you eventually figuring out who killed the butler. It's about you enjoying watching these people on screen. The primary conflict at this point, at the end of season 1, is how is Luz going to get back to her mom? Okay, well, her mom's been in like 1 scene at all, plus some other things that were hallucinations. So the series isn't trying to rely on you caring about the relationship between Luz and her mother. The series is trying to get you to rely on how much you enjoy watching all of these characters and how much you want to see where their characters are going. a lot of the characters feel a little bit underdeveloped. Not underdeveloped. Feel like there is more that we could know about them. And I'm not sure there's enough time left in the series to cover everything that we feel like we need. So, on the topic of having enough time to cover everything that we need, we have to talk about Amity Blight. Amity Blight is a girl who goes to school with Willow and Gus and Luce at Hexside. I forget the rest of the name. She starts out as someone who is very antagonistic towards Willow and then very antagonistic towards Luce by extension. She is an incredibly powerful fighter who is being headhunted to be part of the Emperor's Coven. Actually, scratch that, not headhunted. She's being groomed to be part of the Emperor's Coven. She does abominations, as is her specific field of magic, so she animates this purple goo in order to create these creatures that do her bidding. She's incredibly powerful as a fighter already at the age of whatever age she is. I think they're supposed to be 15, but I could be misremembering. And at the beginning of the series, Luce is asked to fight her. She is insecure about her own performance. She doesn't like the fact that she's been faced against someone like Luce. She feels like she's put in a lot of effort that Luce is catching up to entirely too quickly. And after a couple of episodes, Amity falls in love with Luce. And it's not mutual yet. But I can tell you right now, I've seen a movie before, and eventually it will be. There's a lot of really, really interesting stuff to say about Amity. But I want to start out by saying that the thing that her character means within the overall morality of the story is that talent is exploited by the system. The Emperor has identified her as someone who could be very, very dangerous when she gets older, and therefore he wants to have control over a person like her. She wants to be part of the Emperor's Coven because she wants recognition. She wants someone to appreciate her. And the Emperor's Coven is willing to do so. Where Ida, one of the only other characters with her approximate level of power, actually Ida is much more powerful, but she was probably around the same power level as Amity when she was a child. Ida values her independence. Amity values recognition. For that reason, Ida split away from the Coven system and lives alone in the woods. Amity constantly seeks attention and validation from the higher-ups. However, the important thing about her is that she's gay. And I don't mean that in my opinion, I mean that in the eyes of Mickey Mouse. If you haven't seen The Owl House, and you're just watching this because you stumbled across this, go Google Amity Blight, and I guarantee you will have seen her face somewhere. Like, I recognized her immediately as soon as she came on screen. I went, that is our love interest. I know that because I have seen her all over the internet. She has to be... She's definitely the favorite character, but she has to be the person that Luce will end up with. And the thing about this is that there have been a lot of really successful cartoons in recent years with lesbians. Steven Universe, The Legend of Korra, She-Ra, but Disney still recognizes this kind of series as a risk. And I want to talk about what they are doing about it. Actually, I'm not going to say they think it's a risk. They know that this will be successful. The Owl House has been an incredibly successful series. Everybody's heard of it. If you are in these kinds of circles, people talk about it. It's trending on Twitter all the time. You recognize the characters. You know at least something about it if you hear the name. The Owl House has been successful as a show. Disney wants to make it go away. And how do I know this? So I told you that I feel like the series should be longer. And I think that a lot of people watching it go, this feels very rushed. Dana Terrace apparently told Disney she needs 3 seasons, each 19 episodes, to be able to tell the story she wants. Based on what I've seen from season 1, I would probably look at this and say, okay, I'm going to give you 3 seasons of 22 episodes apiece because I feel like you need it based on what I've seen. What Disney did is they said, you can have 2 seasons of 19 episodes. And then when it was time to be renewed for season 3, they said, you can have a season 3. It's only going to be 3 episodes. Now, what does this do? This means Disney can make a ton of money off of the Owl House in the short term. It means they can get all of the pats on the back for having a queer relationship with its main character in it. They can finally claim they have a queer relationship for realsies this time instead of whatever the hell happened at the end of Star Wars 9. But at the end, what's going to happen, and I promise you this is what they're doing on purpose. What's going to happen is the last season of the Owl House is going to suck. It is going to be terrible. They're going to try to cram an entire season's worth of material into 3 episodes, and it's going to be a train wreck. And I know what you're thinking, but at least we'll have the first 2 good seasons. It can't retroactively ruin the rest of the series. Yes, it absolutely can. Ask anybody who has ever seen Game of Thrones whether a bad final season, or rather, no, specifically, a shortened final season can retroactively ruin the rest of the series. It absolutely does. Now, this will be a little bit to a lesser degree because the series isn't all leading up to a big ending. It's more about the experience of watching it. But the fact that the ending doesn't land is going to condemn this show to being forgotten by history. I want you to take a moment and imagine that Avatar: The Last Airbender had only been able to select 3 episodes from its final season to air, and the rest of them are wiped. Do you know what happens? Avatar: The Last Airbender becomes a mediocre show. Everybody knows that the last season of The Last Airbender is what makes it a classic. Maybe it's not your favorite season, but the things that happen there are what put it in the history books. What I saw in the first season of The Owl House didn't blow me away, but I am absolutely 100% certain that it has the potential to be at the same level as The Last Airbender gets the end, for a couple of reasons. 1, Dana Terrace is clearly trying to tell a message that she cares about a lot. 2, the fight scenes in this show are absolutely stunning. I've never seen an American television series with fight scenes this beautiful. 3, this series is already wildly popular, and it keeps getting better by the episode. The first episode in this series that I felt was really, really strong, that I could sit anybody down and show it to them and they would be impressed, was episode, I believe it's 16, the Enchanting Grom Fright, where they have the magical equivalent of prom and have to fight a monster. It comes towards the end of the first season, but that's because the writing staff was getting comfortable with this cast. The rest of the episodes in season 1 are also incredible. I mean, everything that comes after that is also incredible because they've figured out what they're doing. They've gotten into their groove. I am absolutely certain that the rest of this series is going to be fantastic. And Disney is certain of that too. They want to tank the end of this so that they can red light the next shows that claim to be like the Owl House. And that's insidious. That's evil. when The Legend of Korra was coming out, it was like the first show, the first kids series that had a queer relationship with the protagonist in it, that people really know about, unless there was something back in the 80s that I don't really know about, but I'm talking about since 2000. The Legend of Korra was the one that really changed things. And Nickelodeon was really nervous about what would happen if they went forward with this. So they ended up saying, all right, you can do this. You can put Korra with Asami, but they can only hold hands. They can't kiss on screen, and you have to wait until the last episode. And you know what? It was a success. People really liked it. And then the next show that came after that took it a little bit farther was Steven Universe. But they were able to take it farther because Nickelodeon was willing to take that first step. Disney, on the other hand, is actively trying to push that backwards, is actively trying to make this series bad so that people don't want this anymore, so that they can claim that people don't want this anymore. They're not even saying you can't have this or you need to tone this down, because it is not left up to interpretation what is going on with Amity. It is explicitly and clearly stated that she is romantically interested in Luz, and it is a matter of time before that is reciprocated. And no spoilers for season 2, but they didn't tell Dana Terrace to tone it down for season 2 either. Dana Terrace, in this metaphor, is Ida the Owl Lady. She's the wild one, the courageous one, the one that is willing to stick it to the Emperor at all times and wants to show how different she is and achieve some amount of success until she's captured and made a public example of. And that pisses me off. There's this old concept, older. There's this concept called barrier gaze, which comes partially from the Hays Code. The Hays Code refers to this set of moral guidelines that most movies and TV shows were supposed to follow to ensure that the populace was only exposed to palatable moral systems, basically. And part of what this said was that if you have a gay character, it must be punished by the narrative. So you can have a gay character, but they have to die at the end to show that being gay makes you die, basically. I don't think that Disney is going to tell Dana Terrace to kill off Amity Blight. Dana Terrace herself is going to be the person killed to show just how dangerous it is to be a creator of queer media. And I don't even know what to say to do about this. Dana Terrace went and said in AMA that, like, yeah, this is going on. We've been told we're only going to get 3 long, but only 3 episodes of the final season. Watch the show on Disney Plus. Write in letters to Disney showing your support for the series and asking for more episodes. And yes, writing letters will probably help. Absolutely do that. I actually bought this show. I bought the episodes of season 2 last night so I could watch it, because I want the people at Disney to know that there is money in this series. However, like I said, they are probably collecting those dollars and they're going to be happy with this result because they know that the Owl House is successful. They don't care whether the Owl House is successful. They want it to no longer be successful after the series is over. What happens now doesn't really matter. But I also can't say, all right, we should cancel Disney Plus and say that we'll get Disney Plus back if they extend the length of the final season of The Owl House, because that's just going to tell them, okay, we shouldn't have a season 3 at all. It's very frustrating. But yeah, I maintain this is evil. And I really hope that these themes that I'm pulling out of the story is actually Dana Terrace commenting on what it's like to be a creator, specifically under Disney, because I think it's really applicable to what we're seeing. For one, obviously, there's the whole thing with Ida being sacrificed in front of several hundred people. But second of all, there's the best episode of the series, and so far, in my opinion, is the Grom episode. Basically, what it is at Hexside, the school that they go to, there is a demon that lives under the school, and once a year it comes out to scare everyone. And they have to choose somebody to be Grom Queen. And the Grom Queen or King has to fight this demon back. Otherwise, the demon will mow down everybody in the town. Okay, it will expose everybody in the town to their darkest fears, cause hallucinations. So they have to ask one student per year to risk their life to save the rest of the town. And in this particular episode, Amity is selected because she is the best fighter. But the thing is, it is screwed up that Amity was asked to be this person in the first place. The plot of the episode is that Amity is really disturbed by the fact that she has to do this, and Luz volunteers to take her place. And Luz is utterly clowned on by this demon, and then Amity has to come in and save her. And they defeat the thing together, which is an absolutely gorgeous fight. But neither of these teenage girls should have been asked to kill this demon, or rather forced to kill this demon. They should have some kind of exterminator or something. But the whole point is that talent is exploited. Like the entire point of the show is talent is exploited. And if you're not talented enough, we're going to squash your potential so that we can put you in these little boxes, and by boxes we mean covens, to keep you under control. There's a group of students, it's called the delinquent track. They aren't allowed to learn any magic because what they are is they're students who tried to learn multiple different types of magic. One girl wanted to do like potions and future telling or something like that. I really should have taken some notes. But these students were really, really interested in what they were learning, but they went farther than they were supposed to, and so they were punished. The variation that the delinquents have would actually be a benefit to society. They are passionate about doing something that will almost certainly help other people in the long run. But we can't show people that that's an option, so we have to squash them. And that's exactly what Disney is doing with the Owl House. They are allowing the Owl House to build up to a level so that they can squash it, so that everybody else will know that it's a bad idea to try to be the Owl House. Something that I found really, really potent is the dynamic between Lilith and Ida. Lilith is the coven leader for the Emperor's Coven, so she's allowed to use whatever types of magic she wants. The prize of being exceptionally good is that you get to ignore the rules and control what the people think, and everyone will admire you. However, Lilith isn't happy. She's ultimately a pawn of the Emperor. Even though she's incredibly powerful as a witch, she doesn't really get to make any of her own decisions, and her autonomy is mostly relegated to the way she carries out the missions that the Emperor sends her on. The other person who is roughly at her level and who has a comparable lifestyle is Ida. Ida is an incredibly powerful witch, and because of this, she's been able to evade capture for so long while she practices whatever types of magic that she wishes. So the reward that the Emperor offers for people who are exceptionally good, which is the ability to be famous, the ability to be respected, the ability to do any kind of magic, is exactly what you would get if you didn't join a coven at all. So the two ends of this dichotomy are Lilith and Ida, and Lilith is miserable and Ida is happy. Ida has her own problems. Ida doesn't have a perfect life, but she's far happier than Lilith is. Overall, I'm really looking forward to the Owl House Season 2. I really hope that Disney changes their minds about giving it a proper Season 3. But ultimately, I don't think they will.